Hello, and welcome to the Zaku Talku Podcast, where we journey through each Gundam series in the order that they were released. I'm your host, Mark, and I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Jose and Garcelle, as we take a look at the first of three compilation films for 1979's Mobile Suit Gundam. Enjoy.
So I think we're going to dedicate this round to talking about, I think it'd be best to go over like an introduction of like how familiar we are with Gundam, because there is levels here.
That is very true.
And the first half, and then kind of look at and discuss the only available Mobile Suit Gundam media we could possibly get our hands on, which was a English dub version of the compilation films, starting with part 1 and then doing the rest on a different day.
And then we'll decide how we'll do actual series at a later date.
Yeah, it might be a whole series, like part 1, part 2, because most of them do have a part 1 and part 2. And then
or just have an entire sequel series, like Zeta Gundam and ZZ Gundam.
Yeah, and then also probably going to do most of the OVAs since they're pretty good.
Doesn't Seed have like a shit ton of OVAs?
Well, I don't know. If we'll see how much we enjoy Seed.
Spoiler: we're not big fans of Seed.
I've never watched Seed, so I guess that's kind of a good lead into the first part of the topic, which is how familiar we are. I guess I'll start by saying that I first got into it kind of earlier than I think you guys. Maybe G Gundam was airing on Toonami. I don't even know when that was, but I liked it, and I kind of just watched it when it was on, and then stopped watching Gundam up until I think high school when I kind of got back into it, and then rewatched G Gundam, went on to 00, and then from there just continued to watch most of the non-Universal Century Gundams, and then I kind of dabbled into the Universal Century Gundam, but I didn't start with Mobile Suit Gundam. I started, I think, with Unicorn actually into UC, so it's pretty convoluted, so I'd like to watch them all in kind of a linear way, a linear order. So that's where I kind of started.
Well, I'll go next. I guess I started earlier than you, since I started with Wing. I don't remember anything from Wing, but that's where I started. I did go on to CG, and then that's it. That's all. Up until, like you, I started again with those, or 00, and then stopped again until you guys recommended Iron Blooded Orphans.
I think G was actually before Wing.
I thought Wing... G is first
it was
in Japan, but Wing premiered here first.
Oh.
Here in the United States, for anybody that doesn't know where we're from. Also, for the record, this is our first podcast, so...
Yeah, this is our first episode of our first podcast.
Yeah, we don't necessarily have a perfect structure. Yeah, getting our feet wet.
We literally agreed to this last week.
Hey.
We didn't even know we were going to record today.
With the whole situation around the world right now, it's kind of good to be able to talk to people.
I mean, I haven't heard you guys in months?
Anyway, when it comes to my experience with Gundam, it's actually kind of starts off like yours did, Mark. I remember that I would catch G Gundam airing. I think it was on Toonami at the time. Occasionally, like when I was a kid, and I didn't even watch it I didn't pay attention to it extremely well, but I do remember seeing bits and pieces of it, and I did remember that I enjoyed it. So when I grew up, I kind of thought, that was the only background that I had in terms of Gundam, so I just kind of thought, they were, like combat fighters, like martial artists, when there was, actually a lot more to it. And I did not watch that. I didn't watch any Gundam at all after that, not until earlier this year, that Mark told me to watch Iron Blooded Orphans. Yeah, and he told me to watch Iron Blooded Orphans. I thought it was godlike, and I just, I really got interested in it, and I really started trying, to ask for recommendations and to what to watch next. So after that, Mark told me to watch 00. I watched 00. And then I watched, I started that Char's counterattack one, but I haven't finished it yet. I'm about halfway through after that, I just randomly jumped to Unicorn, and I'm about halfway through that. And
One hell of an order.
after 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 that, I'm where we're at right now with the movie, and I just finished it actually, like probably like less than an hour ago.
Oh my god.
At least you're more up to date than all of us.
All
I
right.
finished watching it earlier in the week.
Yeah, I finished watching it a few days ago. Yesterday, maybe? I don't remember. So, speaking of that movie,
Yes.
so my biggest fear was that the art style and the animation was going to be such a distraction that it was going to be hard to watch. But I think it was fine in those regards. But the dub we got a hold of is a little
It was a little
bad.
sketchy.
Yeah.
We had a few mispronunciations.
Yeah, but like like in the beginning, Gundam, Zaku, Shaw. I don't know. Every time they said those things, it threw me off. Just because I've watched and heard like how everybody else generally pronounces it in the correct way, and hearing it like said like that in such a different way, in such a, I don't know, it was really jarring every time, and I didn't really get used to it. But I still somewhat enjoyed it. Yeah, I just thought it was funny. Like every time they said "Gundam," get in the Gundam, Amuro. Oh, I even heard one of the characters call Amuro Amuro. I was like, "Yo, you've been saying Amuro this whole time, and now he's Amuro."
I don't think we can really judge it on the dub.
In fairness for the dub, I did enjoy the voices that were chosen. Just the mispronunciation was my issue.
One of the positives that I personally really enjoyed was that Char was voiced by Steve Blum, and that's I don't know, that's just me being partial because I think he's one of the most iconic voice actors out there. But I thought his voice fit him. I thought it was pretty good, and I thought Amuro's voice was pretty good too. I just problems, but
Yeah.
other than that, other than the dialogue being somewhat choppy in terms of the pronunciation and in terms of when they would like speak to each other and respond and all that kind of stuff. Probably a bit more to blame on the direction of how it was, how they were directed with that. I thought their voices themselves were just fine.
So, for anyone that doesn't know, and if I remember correctly, these compilation films are the entirety, the three films make up the entirety of Mobile Suit Gundam. So I think 40, 43 or 44 episodes split into three sections.
About 2 hours long each.
Yeah, and I think the reason they did that was because the original run of Mobile Suit Gundam didn't do too well until kind of towards the end, and then the creator decided that it would be easier to consume in a more condensed fashion, and he also made slight alterations to these compilation films and added a little more realism into it. I think in the original Gundam series, it's a little more, I would say, like cartoony, campy. I think there's Amuro gets gun parts in the original series, which is like he can transform his Gundam into like a aerial mode and a tank mode, and I think they cut that out of the compilation films to try and make it a little more realistic. So there's slight alterations like that, but overall I think the feel and the plot and none of that changes really. So I don't know if the gun parts and the campiness would alter our thoughts on the film, but to me I really don't think that it does, because those changes are so minor. So, what did you guys think of the main character so far, Amuro Ray?
Orpez, I'll let you start off.
I was gonna say you go first. I have a lot to say, so.
All right, I'll go. Well, I'm sure Orpez will cover the complaints about Amuro. Other than that, I see Amuro as being a child that has been pushed into war. So him being the way that he is somewhat makes sense. And the compilation film, being a compilation film, also condenses timing. So Amuro seems a bit more flip-floppy than he maybe is in the series. But other than that, I think Amuro is fine. He's just a child pushed into war, and he gets in the robot, unlike another child pilot from a different series. Orpez, your thoughts?
So you think he's just fine? Okay. Well,
I'm a lot more forgiving on characters than you guys are.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. In terms of likability, I honestly did not like Amuro. I thought that he was, like you said, he's whiny, and I'll chalk that up to the fact that he is a child. That's understandable. And the whole thing with him flip-flopping, I kind of imagined that that would probably be probably a detractor to the fact that it's a condensed movie. Maybe the pacing in terms of that and in terms of the range, like, his emotional flip-flop is probably more justified in the timing with the actual series. But the way that it comes off in this, it just comes off as really like bipolar, and it's really annoying, honestly. It bugged me. It just made him more unlikable to me. I just thought he was rude when he didn't necessarily have to be. I thought he was like snippy to everybody for no reason. I thought he seemed like he didn't give a crap about a lot of things, and then he'd be like, "Oh, I give a crap." Like, the first thing that he does is he's like, "Oh, I need to help everybody because I need to do something because this is a war. Gotta save lives and all this stuff." And then right after that whole sequence, in the beginning, he moves on to not caring, and he's just like, "Oh, I don't want to drive or pilot the Gundam. You do it yourself." To that blue-haired guy. By the way, just for reference, what's his name again? I kind of forgot his name.
Bright Noah, or Noah Bright, one or the other.
It is Bright Noah.
Bright Noah. By the way, I did like him. But in that scene, I just thought he was being unreasonable. Like, he just went through going to push for action from himself, and now he's just completely flip-flopped and doesn't want to do jack. And he's just being unreasonable, and it's just like, "Oh, it's not my problem." When his people are pretty much getting attacked and being threatened to be blown up. And it came off really ugly. I didn't like it. I didn't like his character for that. And the things that he says are hypocritical. Like, right after that scene, actually, he's like, "Oh, well, I guess I am really a soldier now." And then, like, just right after, Noah, he has another brief conversation before taking off with that Bright Noah guy. And he's like, "I'm a civilian," basically saying, like, "Why aren't you taking care of me? I'm a civilian." Because the Bright Noah guy just said, he got done saying, "We need to protect the civilians." And now Amuro's, like, turning around just because it comes off as, like, being more convenient to him and wanting to just kind of relax and do whatever he wants. And then he just flip-flops. He gets all mopey. He slaps that one, his friend.
He slapped her like super early, right after her grandfather and her mother were killed in an explosion.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
just slapped her, told her to get over it. Which,
exactly.
For karma, later, Amuro gets slapped by Bright Noah.
Yeah, and he gets slapped by that other guy. That other guy that I don't really remember his name, but I think he hangs out around with this guy named Ryu. Yeah, he hangs out with. Is that him, or does he hang out with the other guy that's named Ryu?
That guy's name is Ryu Jose.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, well, Ryu Jose freaking slaps the crap out of him too. And I think it's hilarious because another thing, when you take that into consideration with the fact that he slapped his friend first, sure, he's being helpful to her. But then when he gets slapped by everybody else, like, stop being a little prick, then he gets all butthurt about it, and he's just such a child. He's so bratty and unlikable, and he flip-flops to whatever is convenient to him. He's so excited to go see his mother, to go look for her, to go find her. He finds her. She says one thing that he doesn't like. He's like, "Oh, so you think I'm a murderer? Well, you just shot some guy, so yeah, I think you're a murderer." And he just flips on her. He turns his back on her. He runs away. The poor mom, she's like, "Oh, I should have left you." Yeah, because, I mean, the first thing that he's doing is he's just sitting in his room completely ignoring the fact that there's, like, a crisis going on around him. His friend's, like, in his face trying to warn him and to protect him. He's just like, "Oh, yeah, whatever. Just be quiet." That's not exactly what he said, but that's essentially what he was trying to convey. He's just not caring, and he's just really annoying. I did not like his character. He's a little prick. I wish I could have slapped the crap out of him.
All right, so I don't.
Time. How long was that rant?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't feel as strongly as you about Amuro. I kind of lean, I guess, more slightly towards Garcille's side. So I lean more towards Garcille's side slightly because I understand that he's. I don't even know. They don't even tell you his age, but he's young
I would assume he's around 16
or
I
young.
thought he was like around 14
or
or
younger.
something.
Back then, a lot of the main characters were a whole lot younger.
Yeah.
Let's not forget Yusuke Urameshi was a middle schooler.
He's super young, and he obviously has a mental breakdown like towards the end of this film. So the stress is getting to him. I think he's trying to like bolster himself as kind of this tough guy. He's in a military ship. He has to kind of be somewhat imposing, I guess.
He's also their only pilot and their main source of protection.
But he also takes advantage of that. And he is cocky and he's arrogant.
Exactly.
And I also didn't understand why Char was so impressed with his abilities when most of what I saw in this part of the film was that the Gundam was the main, like, it did everything for him. He didn't do anything by himself. Char was impressed with Amuro when...
Oh, look at that reaction time.
But at this point in the series, he didn't have that, like, he wasn't reacting super well. When you see Char fighting, he's, like, dodging bullets at point-blank range and getting up close and punching Amuro, which would have killed him if he wasn't in like something made of the material that the Gundam's made of.
And he blasted him at point blank range with that clear shot, and Amuro tanked it because of the Gundam, and he was just impressed. Which, yeah, it's just the Gundam, but all the more reason that's.
That point does get pushed a lot. That the Gundam is just a higher spec than every other mobile suit out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it literally carried him.
I'm talking specifically about Char and his, like, I don't know what he's seeing in Amuro because that isn't really portrayed to us as a viewer, because I assume that we're all on the same page here that the Gundam is what's giving Amuro his abilities. When Char, the character of Char, sees Amuro doing something that's impressing him, when it's mostly the Gundam, like everyone else in the series is like, it's the Gundam. The Gundam's the thing that's carrying him, but Char is like, oh, that boy, he's my rival for no reason. I just didn't understand.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't quite on board with that. I just, especially with that moment that they're fighting, I think it was during their first confrontation, in which he dodges, Char dodges Amuro's beam and ends up right behind him. He's about to attack him. He's about to blast him. And Amuro panics, and he just does whatever, and he, like, flips it and dodges Char's attack. And I mean, it didn't seem like something that was quite as impressive as what Char had literally just done before him, or before that happened. So I just didn't understand this whole praise that Char had for him. Like, it never really came to me.
Yeah, and for all Char knows, this is a trained individual, like, piloting something that is overpowered. So I don't think he knows that Amuro is a kid at that point in the beginning when he first praises him. So that didn't make sense. But
I mean, in fairness, he does find out.
Does he find out? I forgot, honestly. Like, did he find out in that part one? Later in the series. Okay. That's another thing that I kind of just want to get cleared up, since you guys know more about it in general than me.
Believe me, I don't know much about this either. Well,
still, I'm sure you paid attention probably a little bit better, considering I watched the movie throughout the entirety of today.
okay.
But like, it's just so the Gundam was the Federation's only mobile suit then, not overall, but like just in terms of this series, like this series that we're watching, I only saw that other thing, the tank looking thing.
Yeah, the gun tack and the gun cannon.
Yeah.
Weren't those two like prototype Gundams that just were basically failures into what they wanted?
Yeah. So I think there's more RX units, but
okay, yeah, because I remember.
Yeah, I don't think they ever got deployed in the series. They might have even been blown up.
Those should be remember. Up until Zeta, right?
Yeah.
No, I think the RX 78-2.
Well, the 1 and 2 are both in Zeta.
The 1 and 2 are in Zeta.
Yeah, and the Alex is something else.
The Alex is a new type. It's the precursor to the high.
Also, this will be like later on. Then.
Yeah, but yeah, I think in terms of like background information, I think you get more of it in the Char origin, Gundam origin, that the
Mhm.
Zaku was the first like combat mobile suit. So the Zeon forces had a heads
Mhm.
up or like a head start on mobile suit production, whereas the Federation had to catch up. And they have like gyms, which are GM mobile suits. They're like fodder.
Mhm.
But I don't think we've seen one so far because we've only really been tracking what White Base has, and they don't have anything. They're manned by civilians, and I was gonna go into that. Like, how do you guys feel about the theme of or the idea concept of civilians fully manning an assault ship? It looks like White Base is.
What does that say about the Federation Army when they're constantly saying that these complete amateurs are good enough?
Yeah.
Yeah. That came off as just like, are so many of them actually this incompetent as the being shown up by a bunch of newbies? Now, I don't know.
You have 2 children piloting.
Yeah, it's
3
just
children. Like Amuro's in the
okay.
Gundam, Kai is in the gun cannon, then
So
Hayato
they
is
call
with
the other
Ryu in the gun
thing.
tank.
They call Xeon what the resistance, or I think they reference them like that at one
Yeah.
point or something like that. That usually to me comes off as they're the smaller faction, or at least maybe equal to. Probably not the bigger or the superior in general. Sure, they are superior in terms of technology, up until the Gundam, but I thought that they would at least be on equal footing, but it really comes off as if the Federation is just really the smaller one in terms of manpower, and I thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought they would have gone into like some sort of lore backstories, like in this first half or this
Hmm.
first third, I guess. And they didn't. Like we know nothing. We don't know. Like they bring in Garma Zabi and Dozel Zabi and the Zabi family, but we don't know who they
Hmm.
are, and we don't know why they're there,
Or
and
how
we
they
don't
came to power
know.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we don't know why
Yeah.
Shar hates them so much, and we don't know
Well, it
why.
seemed Char was just power hungry.
No. See, I don't know if would it be okay to just talk about, because I already know why, but I don't know if you guys want to go into the series that we
I mean, we
watch
don't we
next.
don't know, so we probably shouldn't go
Well,
That's
I
into
have an
it
true.
more.
idea just because I started the Char one, but
Yeah,
I kind of want to like look at this in the perspective of
of a
just
fresh
these
watch.
movies.
That's what I'm
Exactly.
thinking. Yeah, that's what I was trying to go for. So in terms of these movies, we have no idea why Shar hates them. We don't know why the Zabi family's in power. We don't know why they're fighting in the first place. We just know that there's a war
Hmm.
going on between the Federation and Xeon, and that's it. And we don't know why. And I
Yeah.
find that kind of interesting story wise because there's nothing really to grasp onto. However, I did enjoy this so far. Like it's interesting to see Bright Noah try and command like a ship full of noobs.
And apparently being so successful that the higher ups are actually
We got a
really
promotion.
pushing for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's interesting so far. I mean, and I like the art style and the animation's not that bad. So it's just weird how they didn't show anything. Like you see from if I were to watch this right now and just look at the information that they give me throughout the films, it kind of seems like Xeon's kind of like Nazi-ish, I guess. Like you see him saying like "Hail Xeon, Hail Xeon," when they're in the
Hmm.
capital after Garma dies. But other than
Yeah.
that, that's kind of all you get.
Yeah, with the whole limited backstory, and honestly, in general, I kind of thought that in terms of the details, considering, like, with everything in general, it seemed really surface level. I thought they'd go into more of, like, the background, the lore, in terms of everything. Like, I'll give you an example here, that was kind of randomly sprung up. So, when they're having that orbital battle, when, Amuro and, the Federation are trying to like re-enter. I think it was Earth. They're flying around and they're fighting, if I remember correctly, which makes sense because that's what I feel like I've always seen Gundams do. But then out of nowhere, once they reach, I'm pretty sure it was once they reached into the Earth, like they're past the atmosphere. Bright Noah yells out at some point, the Gundam is fighting in the air! They're fighting in space. They were fighting in space just before. How are they not able to fly? Are the Zaku's only land-based? I'm pretty sure I saw them fly off earlier. Yeah, I did. I remember they had like a jetpack. So that kind of really caught me off guard. I was like, what the hell?
Garcelle, do you want to answer this?
You go ahead, man.
So I think you never actually see the Zaku's fly. They're in space, so they just use thrusters to propel themselves. That's not necessarily. I think what he was saying was like Amuro can take on, like, he can stay in the air and fight the jets, like the spacecraft. Whereas Shar flying down, he gets deployed out of the ship in the air and then travels downward, dodging Amuro's shots with the thrusters as he goes towards the ground. But he never like flies up and like stays in the air to fight, because I don't think that at this point the Zaku's have that capability.
The Gundam has hops.
Yeah, they can just like bounce.
That's funny. Well, sorry, that was kind of I kind of threw that in. But going back to the original point, in terms of like how deep it goes into the backstory and lore and all that kind of stuff, I thought it was kind of like I said, really surface level. Like the explanations in terms of the Gundam, and it's.
I mean, let's also be mindful that it is the first movie.
Yes, but I thought they'd say like a little bit more detail, like just out of just hearing it from other people and whatnot. Like this whole Gundanium armor thing and all this stuff. Yeah, so I'm trying to look at it with just like the perspective of like, okay, if I didn't know what that was, but I heard it, why don't they bring it up here? They just didn't really talk about anything. They just pretty much always they just resorted to saying, the Gundam is so superior. That's pretty much it. Like, they never talked about why it's really superior, how it's really superior, what makes it so special. Here's another random question that I have for you guys. So, is it really the Gundam's armor that was strong enough to withstand the re-entry into the atmosphere? Because when Amuro was like going through it, he had to activate some kind of mode, and then somebody mentioned that it was like the coolants that are activated on the Gundam that enable it to survive atmospheric re-entrance. So is that actually the armor that's tough enough to withstand that, or is it just the compensation essentially that the coolants provide to cool the unit down and allow it to not burn up into the atmosphere?
Probably a bit of both, since the Gundam armor is like just made out of some super adamantium shit or something like that. And then the Gundam does have a cooling system for re-entry, which I don't think I've ever seen it in any other Gundam.
Yeah, I haven't really seen a ton of Gundams, but in the other ones that I've seen, they never had anything like that at all.
Iron Blood Orphans.
Yeah. That, and what was it? A 00, and was it Unicorn?
Unicorn. I don't think they ever re-enter in Unicorn.
No, wait. Yeah, you're right. No, I was just I just remembered that clip from Wing that you showed me.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that until we get.
Yeah, at a later date. Yeah, but still, I was just kind of wondering. I mean, overall, the Gundam's armor is tough, and they pretty much make that a point every time they attack it.
The Gundam might have been able to survive, but Amuro might have, and the system might have fried inside without the coolant. I don't know if that might have happened, because that's just disintegrate.
Yeah. That's an interesting interpretation, or at least like something it sounds plausible, and I welcome it. Thanks for sharing it. Because it's nice to think about. It's kind of interesting, but because I think that's just me kind of like compare.
If we look at the UC series, I think we'll find that it tries to be, aside from new type, I think it tries to be more realistic in terms of the capabilities of like the suit. Actually, I think for at least for this part, till we get to like the crazy stuff that happens in something like Unicorn, but
or 00.
Well, Double O's not part of the UC timeline. It's
Yeah,
part of
that's true. That's true.
So yeah, so those ones
That's
seem,
an
those ones
alternate
can
one.
yeah, the alternate timelines get a little more crazy with what I think than what.
They let the Gundams be capable of.
Yeah, because in this it kind of seems like the Gundam does kind of boost his abilities, but only because it's more durable. I feel like if Char and Amuro both had, or even like those grunt characters had something as powerful as a Gundam, they would destroy Amuro instantly. So
Mhm.
it's more so it's just durable right now. Amuro isn't really like he's like an ace pilot or anything. He's just flying out in the middle of nowhere and kind of attracting fire at this point in the series, so that other people
And
can get
pretty
away
much
from
just
him.
taking it because he can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I like the characters. What did you guys think of the other characters?
Yourself?
My favorite character was Kaijin, then the coward, who I believe is a better shot than Amuro is.
Is this the guy that talks crap all the time and then
Yeah.
he's like
The
pissing his
purple hair.
pants?
Yeah.
Oh my
purple-
gosh.
Going back to the pissing his pants. When he first launched the gun cannon, he shot down like two different little airplane thingies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He shot two down while pissing his pants, basically. So I'm gonna say that he's a better shot than Amuro is.
Is he
Yeah.
though? I mean, Amuro was capping things like
Yeah, but he had like
early,
a zoom
like
scope and a cannon that
yeah, that's
kills
true.
anything. I
That.
don't
Yeah,
know.
that's definitely true.
So at first, I mean, I like all the character designs are nice. Kai's is probably the most. He looks like a thug. I think I don't know. I really like Bright. Salem Moss is her. I don't know if it's just the voice actress, but her voice in that show is terrible.
Dude, the accent though, I love it.
I don't know what it's an accent of. I thought it was like at first I was like, is that Irish? No, is that like
I kind of thought it'd be like Welsh or something.
is it Eastern European? I don't know, but her character, the character, I'm frustrated with Frau Bo because she's like catering to Amuro.
She also flip flops almost as often as Amuro does. Either she's completely worried about them, or she's just angry at him, or she just gets jealous.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
true.
dude. He's Amuro's like he's like hunting that MILF.
The pink-haired MILF.
He's just staring at her. He just stares at her, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's important yet, but it's just really
Hey,
odd.
staring's not a crime.
He mentioned that he knows her, or he feels like he knows her.
I thought it was his mom at first.
I thought that too.
And
But then
he
we
goes
meet
and
her
meets his
mom.
mom. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's a weird relationship. I don't know what that is, but Frau Bo, obviously her reactions show us as the audience that Amuro is like eyeing this woman with with like some sort of passion because she's pissed every time she comes in. And then the captain, she's just like, I can fly this. I think I can fly it, and then she's like an ace who can maneuver the into like a football stadium.
She was just like, oh yeah, I remember when she's like, I can do it. And it's like, I just read the manual like 5 minutes ago. He's just like, good enough.
Like Site 7 had some like you should be eyeing that place if it wasn't it destroyed? But they were making some pretty top tier soldiers in that area, because all of them were like, yep, we're pros already. We just came out. We're like regular civilian kids, and now we're the
Ace
Federation's
pilot.
top soldiers. Yeah. Yeah. So it's so far. What do you guys think of it?
I think it's enjoyable. I'm liking it.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I kind of figured, like, just kind of knowing that it was a condensed version of a longer series, I felt like that kind of helped my enjoyment of it, because it lets me forgive certain things about the pacing that would otherwise, I would say, feel kind of strange. Like, everything feels like it happens back to back, but I'm sure it's not necessarily supposed to actually be like that. At least that's what I'm thinking. I'm giving,
right?
yeah. Just because, like, but that's the pacing in terms of trying to condense something into something shorter. Something that's, what did you say, was like 60 episodes or something like that?
It's like 40,
40 to
43 or
50.
44.
Okay, well that's still a fair amount. So I think that it's a decent compromise. Like, in terms of my enjoyment, I did enjoy it. I thought the animation was fine, and it wasn't like there are some times that I think that this, like, something can look so old that I will not enjoy it. But this, like, yeah, it looked old, but it was still actually pretty good.
Yeah, the colors are
So
nice.
I still give
The
it a
line
thumbs
art
up.
was nice.
Yeah.
I still think the background looked beautiful, and a lot of the space backgrounds look beautiful.
Yeah,
So
I was really impressed. I don't know if they enhanced the color or something in the movie version, but the movie came out like right after the series in like the 80s, and the series was
Did it? I was about to ask that. I was gonna
yeah.
ask that.
Yeah, because he made the films because the show was not popular and then became popular towards the end of it. So he's like, oh, I'm just gonna make some movies, trying to get more people excited for it. I thought it was pretty good so far. I'm really looking forward to some of the Xeon characters, like seeing more Shar, Ramba Rawl, who pilots the Blue Goof. I want to see more of him and seeing some of the things that might come up in the later. Because I feel like you hear a lot of things about the first Gundam series, like this happens, this happens, this happens, and so the fact that they haven't happened yet kind of gives me something to look forward to. Yeah, like I know some things that do happen, and they didn't happen in this part, so they're gonna happen probably in the second or third, or probably in the third. I think a lot of the stuff happens in the space. But so far, it's pretty good. Amuro's a little annoying, but I feel like he'll mature. I think later on when he kind of realizes his importance, and when the Xeon forces get a little stronger, and then maybe he'll have to be more attentive and smart with his actions instead of just running in there and be like, I have this OP gun that you can't touch, so I can do whatever I want. And you can kick me and punch me and shoot me, and it's not going to do anything. But when they actually get the ability to hurt him, I think it's gonna be a little different. But yeah, part one is pretty good.
Those slaps to Amuro really carried me through this one.
Now you know it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I am surprised that you guys have not sent me one picture of the second slap.
spoilers. Spoilers. We wanted you to have something to look forward to.
Well, it was well worth it. I literally watched that 4 times after it happened. I rewinded it to see that little punk get slapped. He was just sitting in bed.
I think we should ask one or talk about one more thing, and that's kind of like the themes, because I know Gundam's supposed to be heavy on like themes of, I think, anti-war and the effects of war on people and both sides. So did you guys get any of that in this first part, or was it a little too condensed, or not enough backstory to really flesh that out? But so what do you guys think about kind of the themes that are in this first part?
The whole war is bad. Amuro does have a breakdown near the end of the film.
Yeah,
where he's just almost pretty much comatose and can't pilot the Gundam.
Yeah.
Then also, what was his name? The guy that gets killed at the end? Garma?
Garma.
Yeah.
Garma, yeah.
Garma.
So Garma he wants to make something of himself. And
damn, his girl got cucked.
And puts himself in danger to make himself good enough for his family.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of got caught up in the whole the effect on the civilians, how they had to rally together and kind of take control over the situation, and join the mess, even though it wasn't necessarily theirs to really have to deal with. They were kind of thrust into it, and And then when they're asking for help over and over and over again, they're so, I don't know if it's just that the white base isn't super important or whatever, but they kept getting kind of, no, we don't have resources for you. This is fine. You can survive with these civilians. And it was kind of showing the harshness of war and maybe the lack of resources and how it's not really fair, I guess, that, and they're kind of in that situation that they don't really want to be in, even though the show kind of makes it seem like they were okay with it, aside from Amuro, because all the other ones are like pretty hyped up to volunteer. But...
Except Kai.
Okay, so
in terms of the whole war aspect, I don't know. It didn't quite catch me with that whole war is bad type of thing. I don't know. Not that it's good, obviously, but just it didn't seem like it was real. Like, I didn't feel like there was something to emphasize, like anything in particular, like war is bad. Other than the only thing that I thought of was when Amuro's mom tells him that nobody has the right to take anybody else's life. I think that's the biggest moment that impacted me in terms of the whole theme and the message in Gundam that you guys brought up. So I'm hoping that the other movies expand on it. I'm hoping that the other movies, and I'm pretty hopeful that they'll probably make Amuro more likable. I do understand what you guys mean by that. He got all traumatized and all that kind of stuff and was breaking down at the end. That was pretty good, actually. Even though personally I was kind of laughing at it just because it comes off as more campy, but that's just an effect of it being an older movie. So I don't want to fault it, but it kind of just comes with it as is because it's an older movie and it comes off as very campy to me that way. But overall, I generally agree with you guys.
Okay, so I think that's it for the discussion on the first part of the movie, unless you guys have anything else you want to add.
No, I'm looking forward to part 2.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
All right, that's it for the first episode of the Zaku Talku Podcast. Join us next time for parts 2 and 3 of the Mobile Suit Gundam compilation films.